Alright, boys, welcome to day 14 of the bootcamp. We're dedicating today for the mindset, but this time for a very specific sector of the mindset, which is making hard things look easy. And this is one thing which a lot of people will experience. I've seen it firsthand whenever I'm dealing with either IRL conversations with people who want to get into dropshipping or even my affiliates. So unfortunately, my current affiliates are actually very dedicated, so I didn't see that in them. But previously, I've seen some people who had this pattern, which is um, not being that motivated purely because of emotions and hardships. Okay, but today I'm gonna break down why it is really important to change the lens of life, the way you look at things, specifically hardships, because the first pillar which we're gonna focus on today is you get to do things. And every single time I get into the same sort of feeling, which is, oh, this is boring, or this is not easy to do, this is challenging, whatever, then I remember this, which is you get to do instead of you have to do. Okay? So you get to instead of you have to. And this is the first thing we want to talk about, because once you understand the importance of changing the perspective of everything to gain power, okay? So all we're doing with the mindset is we're reprogramming our mind, and you might expect this to be on day one, which I've broken down briefly in my foundation. I've even given you a list, which I hope you've made. If you've been on track since day one of the bootcamp, you're gonna know what I'm talking about here, which is the 3 W's, the 3 Y's. If you made that list, you're gonna be ahead big time, because the more challenging your life has been, the more or the bigger the why is for you, which is gonna constantly motivate you to succeed. It's really all about your why. So that was the first thing which I really highlighted, or I insisted that you make on day one. But today is about rewiring your mind for the daily things, okay? So day one might have been more motivating, but today is more about the discipline side. So we all know by now that you need to be disciplined. You need to do a number of tasks every single day until you see the overnight success, which is 1K day, 10K day, whatever it is. So how do we get through these tasks, which are often very boring, very hard, and you might even have a fear, like you might feel fearful of doing them. It's normal, okay? Taking risks will always have fear tied to it. So that's exactly what we're talking about today about, is that number one, whenever you feel demotivated or you feel like it's hard, you need to link it to gratefulness. So gratitude is actually, I'm gonna type it below it. Gratitude is not only gonna keep you motivated, gratitude. It's gonna actually also keep you going. So oftentimes people would get comfortable after they get their first initial goals, and then they forget or they take things for granted, and then they get comfortable, and then since they're at the top, so this is a graph, once you make it at the top, oftentimes people get comfortable, and oftentimes their activities are not the same as when they were failing. So here they would put less energy, which often makes them go down. So you don't want to fall into this pitfall. Instead, you want to practice gratefulness. Always take credit for good things, just like the bad things that happen to you. So if anything bad happens to you, it's good to take accountability. So you reach this point of your life, whether, by the way, I'm not setting standards here. It could be one sale. Getting your first sale is a big deal. So no matter what your goal was and that you have achieved, as long as you've done it, these private victories, you need to be grateful for them and credible. So That's the second thing. So you need to take credibility for things, and this is gonna motivate you, actually. That's a good part. So although I keep focusing on discipline, there's actually a few things which you could keep on the side of your mind, like these cards, which you could pull off every single time you feel demotivated. Once you pull them, you're gonna feel instantly motivated. For example, being credible. So every single time, let's say you had the worst journey to your first 10K month. Okay, so the reason I say 10K because on average, most people's goals are 10K per month. So this is a graph. Here is where you started, 0. So this is gonna be time, and it's gonna be from 0 month to 12 months. So 1 year. For the longest time, you were stuck at, actually, it's gonna be like this, literally 0, and then slowly go up, then go up, maybe go down, and then you go up. Okay? This is how it felt for me at least, but the way it is, when you reach the 12 month, okay? So let's say at this point, it's actually harder to maintain here because a lot of people, they feel comfortable here and then they drop. So this applies to wherever you are, by the way. It doesn't need to be at 10K. It could be anywhere. Even if you were stuck here at the start, okay? So you see this 0 part, your rock bottom. Then here it was your first sale. So while you are between this period and this period, you need to stay motivated that you have achieved the first one, which is your first sale. And then once you hit this new peak, let's say here you made 10 sales, okay? And then you experience this drop of sales. This is where you're gonna feel the most depressed during this time. That's where you need to pull up these cards and remind yourself that you were stuck at 0 for the longest time, and then you got your first sale, you got your 10 sales, whatever, and then even though you dropped, you know that you're gonna see the light at the end of the tunnel. So at this point, you just need to literally trick yourself, be delusional that you just need to spend more time, more energy until you see more results. And oftentimes, if you give it enough time and you're on the right track, doing the right things at the right time, you're gonna pull it off. Okay, that's the beauty of it. So I really want you to focus on this and take this into account next time you experience any sort of hardship, because this is how it is for everyone, including myself. Like last year compared to this year, I was actually reflecting yesterday, asking myself, how was I this motivated last year compared to this year? Because even last year I was getting sales, but it was nowhere near this year. So I was giving credit to myself for being very disciplined, very motivated last year, despite not getting the numbers I really wanted. And that motivated me further. So you should do the same. Every single time, reflect back to the times where you weren't doing as good, okay? And even if you are literally at the start, okay, between the process of your 0 and first sale, you still need to take this first pillar, which is you get to, because a lot of people can't even set up the back end for them to get their first sale, okay? There's a lot of people who cannot even do that. So you need to take every little blessing into mind, into account, and be grateful for it. And especially if you have the 3 whys, the list which we have made together on day 1, then you're gonna use this to bring out a specific emotion, which is often, so let's say, what's your 3 big whys? Maybe to retire your mom or whatever it is. It's personalized to you, but oftentimes this will bring out this sense of responsibility, or you're just trying to be the man, okay? So this is one thing, and the third point is another thing. We're gonna use a different emotion, which is being competitive. And this is a very instinctive emotion which we have naturally, but we need to use it to our advantage. And how do we do that? We need to look at the game differently. So next time you feel demotivated, you need to remember we are playing a PvP game, gentlemen. And what do I mean by this? Every single product you are testing right now, someone else might have tested before you. They might have ordered it, in fact, and it's arriving tomorrow while you're thinking whether you should order and test. And no matter what you do, whether you have posted 2, 3, 5 times a day, there must be this one person who posted 10 times. If you sleep at 12, someone slept at 2. If you woke up at 6, someone woke up at 5. There's always someone who is outperforming you somewhere. And for that reason, you need to work harder, okay? Although on day one, we have made another list, which is creating the best version of you. And this is your true villain. This is your true competitor. It was for the exact same emotion. We're trying to embark this emotion of competitiveness, which is also perceived as anger. But this is a harmless sort of anger, which is simply knowing that there are people out there who are playing the game against you and you want to do better. Okay, so every single dollar you're trying to obtain, someone else is trying to take it as well. Same for the card, whatever. So that's why I'm gonna stick to the first thing I told you guys, because that's obviously true, is to not rely on comparing yourself to others, because people might mistaken this to being envious, and that's the worst emotion to use. That's why the first list we spoke about in this bootcamp was creating the 1% version of you who does everything perfectly. Everything is better than you. Just like the way I described that person who is staying longer before they sleep, they're waking earlier than you, they're testing more products, they're marketing better, they're creating better content, everything. So obviously the best way to do that and embark this emotion is through creating this list of the better version of you, but also you need to acknowledge that you are playing a game which is time. Okay, it's mainly time and speed. So whoever tests the product first or brings a new angle first will get the most outcome. Whoever is more creative, who has a better offer, better website, better content skills, you name it. These types of people will do better. It's just naturally like the market is gonna bend to their needs and they're gonna just get more sales. So for that reason, you should think that there's other, like, let's say you are demotivated, you go into bed. You must remember that there's someone, literally you, in a different realm who is doing better, who is staying up till 3 a.m., posting 2 different contents or formats before they sleep, while you just posted once today. So be angry, it's fine. But this is more of a harmless way of anger, which is creating energy and then funneling it down into work. This we're gonna do more work. And that's pretty much it. All about like the third point, really. So first one is gratefulness. Second one is motivation. So whenever you feel down, you need to remember what you have achieved. Third one is anger. So you can see a pattern so far. We are using emotions to our advantage. We are rewiring our mind to perceive emotions in a different way. So literally this list, I'm gonna have to talk about it again. Let's say it was sadness. Okay, you're using the word or the emotion sadness by using your traumas or whatever your whys are to your advantage. Okay, I hope you understand what do I mean by the 3 whys. So I'm gonna recap in case you haven't seen my previous ones. Why are you doing this? What's your main goal? Okay, what's your purpose? The second W is why not you? So make it personal. What is stopping you from doing this? And then the last W, the last Y is why not now? So what's stopping you from taking action right now? So these three should be very personalized, and they tend to make you sad slash angry, which is gonna make you perform more. So you can see that every pillar or every method we've mentioned so far is provoking some sort of emotion, and then you are re-engineering or rerouting this emotion or funneling it down into your work. That's pretty much how you can outperform others, because trust me, when you work without using emotions, because let's be real, everyone tells you to not be emotional about work, which is true. But especially at the start, when you are starting, you're going to be very emotional, especially with the hardships. So that's when you use these mostly. And then obviously later on, you understand the game, you understand how it works. Then you will be more rational, less emotional, but you will have these cards in your pocket for the times you feel emotional. Lastly, the fourth point, if there is one more emotion or one more way that I could reprogram my mind to perform better, is the environment. I've spoken about this before, but it's really, really important. I cannot stop talking about this. This is just the second time, by the way, I mentioned this in this bootcamp, so don't worry. Environment is the reason you're gonna outperform others. Let me tell you why. Environment is gonna either set barriers in front of you or is gonna open doors for you. So in our case, in our game, we are dropshipping. So we are creating content, and that's the number one skill which we have to create income. So what does environment do in this context? I'll tell you. If you have a table which you record on, and then this table has a bunch of stuff on it, like your PC, and then on the side you use it for filming, and then you have here like 10 cups and trash and all this sort of things, you're gonna be way less inclined to do more work than having a separate table in a different room from the room that you use for gaming or for wasting time. So literally having a separate table in a different room or living room, whatever. And this one's clean. It has a perfect background. So here's the wall. Let's say you have the 3D, or let's say you have the bricks background, whatever it was. And most importantly, it's empty. That's gonna drastically increase the likelihood of you wanting to create more content. And this is one thing which not many people talk about, but this is what I've noticed. This is what I've read and experienced. Okay? So trust me, you need to treat your work more seriously. Oftentimes people forget that they're actually running a real business. Even if you're not making sales yet, treat it like a real business since day one. And one of the ways to do that is to invest into a separate room or separate table and count it as your workstation, so that whenever you finally convince yourself to work, you go to that table and then you see it empty, you just start recording, or with the props, and then you start recording. Versus, let's say you have this messy room, messy table, messy environment, whatever it was, and then you finally convince yourself to get off the bed and start recording, and then you see a bunch of garbage on your table. Trust me, you're gonna go back to bed. Unless you have an iron will, which is another thing which you need to focus on. So this is what you don't want to do. This is what you want to do. And I hope you can have some examples which will make you relate to this, because this is really important. So that's more about the physical way or the physical side of the environment. The second side to it is the digital one. So surround yourself with not just people, but information. Take information which are beneficial to you, which are constantly going to subconsciously prove to your mind that this will work. Because the world is very one dimensional around you, especially when you're broke. When you are living around normal people who don't make money online, and then you just record in front of them, or you talk about making money online, they're gonna quickly break that dream or like that idea of you by saying something, okay? And that one thing might take space in your mind for the rest of your day and lower your momentum. So one thing is ignoring what people say, but then another thing is avoiding it from the first place. And by environment, we're actually talking about avoiding these negative stimulus from the first place, because handling them is harder than taking them taking them in from the first place. So don't hang out with people who are not on the same mission. Don't even talk about, that's why people say you need to work low key at the start. Don't talk about your dreams or your ideas. Why? Because if you share it, especially with the wrong people, oftentimes their little minds will convince you otherwise, and then you're gonna either delay it further or shut it down completely. So remember, your environment is everything, whether it is the little things like your workstation or your content background not being organized, so that whenever you are finally gonna start recording and you say you want to record, you have the least amount of barriers. It's really just about barriers, okay? So try to have as minimal amount of barriers as possible to taking action, because yeah, whenever you think about working, you can do it instantly. Um, and obviously, in terms of information, try not to take in any negative news or information from friends or whatever. Try to focus on you and growing your ideas, your confidence about this thing, and just surrounding yourself. So, for example, this bootcamp is the most boring bootcamp you might get into, because I'm sharing everything. I'm just brain dumping every single thing I've learned over my past years, and only a set amount of people who are serious enough are gonna watch and relate and understand and act from this. So this is not for everyone. Versus if you are just watching for entertainment, it's the wrong environment. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is this bootcamp is the right environment for you guys to actually gain knowledge, be motivated, be disciplined, and take more action, versus watching a very motivating video, which could be about dropshipping, but then at the end of it, you realize that they just gave you this final call to action, which is get into my course for me to actually give you the real sauce. So that makes you realize that, oh, so I spent 8 or 10 minutes watching entertainment. The final part was where things got real. So he wants me to join before I can get the real sauce. So no, this is the sort of environment I'm talking about. Taking information which are just based off experiences, case studies, um, hardships, everything. And that's what's gonna actually make you learn. So it was a very important day. I really hope you guys watch this far, because, and more importantly, taking them into notes. You need to remember these. Next time you face any sort of hardship, you need to remember these pillars and use them to turn hard things to easy things. Okay, so you need to be grateful about what you do. You need to take the little wins, the prize victories, to feel self-esteemed. This is literally a pyramid, which I'm trying to remember his name. All right, so I just looked it up, and this pyramid was made by Maslow. It's really old, like 50 years old or something, but it's really relatable to what we're talking about here. So I'm gonna quickly break down what it is. So the first level is basic needs. So food, air, water, basic needs just to survive. Next is shelter and health. Next is gonna be love and being acceptable. So being part of a community, society, being acceptable. Next one is what we're talking about here, which is self-esteem. So now you will see what I'm going with this. So the first point was you get to do these things, which brings out this gratitude. Why? Because you need to remember whenever you're feeling down, you need to remember you have these first three. Okay, you have basic needs, you have food, you can survive, you can drink water. Next is you have a shelter, you have a ceiling. Next is you have a family, or you have someone that loves you, okay, like a family member, and you're being accepted as a part of a society or whatever. That's where you understand that you are actually, like, you should be taking life for not for granted. You should actually be grateful for it. And that's where you reach this point, which is self-esteem, which is gonna spark confidence. And in our context, this confidence is motivation. Okay? Just like I mentioned here. So whenever you are, feeling down, remember what you have achieved. 10 sales, 100 sales, 1,000 sales, whatever. That's gonna bring out this self-esteem card, and you're gonna do better. You're gonna keep on going. And then the final one is actually one pillar, which is self-actualization. And this part is self-actualization. This is where you have made a big chunk of what your mission is. So if you've achieved a big part of it, and this is where you feel qualified enough to share and help others. It's literally all about helping. So if you were to study this, this one is quote by quote. You start helping. So when you understand the game, you see how hard it is, and you've made it this far, you start having the tendency of helping others because you've been through it. Okay? And that's what this is all about. So this is, by the way, about psychology. This is called the pyramid of physiological needs. You can search it up. I literally studied this, and I was surprised how similar or relatable this is to dropshipping. So if I was to take one thing which I studied of my 2 years before I dropped out, would be this. Trust me, this is the most important thing to keep in mind, because this will make it all clear to you. You need to be grateful. You need to feel motivated. Motivation is also self-esteem. The competitiveness is actually not here. So unfortunately, we're gonna have to make our own pyramid. Okay. I would say competitiveness is somewhere here, like between the first. You know what? I would say competitiveness is literally all around. Competitiveness is what fuels this whole thing. Honestly, you need to feel competitive. It's just an instinctive trait which we humans have. And obviously the environment is part of the basic needs and the shelter, but in the modern world, it's actually the internet, the Wi-Fi. You need to surround yourself with the right information. So hopefully you guys learned something important today and you took notes so that you can perform better. And yeah, take action. See you on day 15. Peace out, boys.